The room was a fortress of shadows, its walls lined with monitors that flickered with data streams, surveillance feeds, and encrypted case files. The faint hum of servers filled the air, a mechanical heartbeat underscoring the silence of the Tokyo high-rise that served as L's temporary headquarters. L sat hunched in his swivel chair, knees drawn to his chest, his dark eyes fixed on a single screen displaying a grainy photo of Watari, his mentor, his handler, his only true confidant. The older man's face was stern but kind, etched with the weight of decades spent shepherding a prodigy through a world that neither fully understood. L's fingers, usually restless, were still, clutching a sugar cube he hadn't eaten, as if the act of holding it grounded him against the storm in his mind. It was October 2004, and the Kira case was a noose tightening around them all. Light Yagami, L's prime suspect, sat just floors below, chained to him in a psychological and literal gambit that had yet to yield proof. The task force was fraying, Soichiro Yagami's loyalty torn between duty and family, Matsuda's optimism waning, Aizawa's patience thinning. Misa Amani, the second Kira, was in custody, her Shinigami eyes a wild card L couldn't fully counter. And L himself, the world's greatest detective, felt the weight of something he rarely acknowledged. Doubt. Not about Light's guilt, he was certain of that, but about himself, about the legacy he had built on a foundation of secrets, sacrifices, and sins. The secret was a wound, buried deep, one L had carried since his earliest days at Wami's house. It was not a case, not a failure in the conventional sense, but a transgression so profound it threatened to unravel the myth of L. Watari knew it, had been there, had cleaned up the mess, had sworn to keep it locked away. But now, with Kira's shadow looming and L's life hanging by a thread, the secret was a liability. If Watari fell, if he was captured or coerced, the truth could surface, and L's legacy, the untarnished image of justice, the beacon for Near and Mellow, would crumble. L couldn't allow that. Not now, not when the world needed him most. He turned from the screen, his gaze falling on a small, unassuming device on the desk, a prototype, developed in secret by Watari's contacts in Wami's house. It was a neural suppressor, a tool designed to edit memories with surgical precision, erasing specific moments without damaging the mind. L had resisted using it, recoiling from the ethical abyss it represented. To manipulate Watari's memory, to violate the trust of the man who had raised him, was a betrayal that made his stomach churn. But the alternative was worse. The secret, a case from a decade ago, a choice L had made in desperation, a life he had ended to protect his identity, could not be exposed. Not to Kira, not to the task force, not to the successors who would carry his mantle. La's fingers tightened around the sugar cube, crushing it into dust. He rose, moving with the silent grace of a specter, and approached the safe where Watari kept his personal logs. The older man was downstairs, coordinating with the task force, unaware of the decision L had made. The safe opened with a code only L knew, revealing a stack of encrypted drives and a single, handwritten journal. Watari's private record, a relic of trust between them. L's hands trembled as he flipped through it, finding the entry he dreaded. June 12th, 1994. L's decision. The cost was high, but necessary. I will carry it for him, always. The words were a knife cutting through L's defenses. He remembered that day, the rain-soaked streets of London, the target who had come too close to unmasking him, the choice to end a life rather than risk exposure. Watari had been there, arranging the cover-up, ensuring no trace remained. It was a sin they shared, but L bore the weight, and Watari bore the memory. Now L would take that from him, not out of mercy, but out of necessity. He returned to the desk, the neural suppressor cold in his hand. The device was simple: a headset, a touchscreen interface, a sequence of commands to isolate and erase. L had studied its schematics, calculated its risks. There was a 4% chance of cognitive damage, a 12% chance of partial memory bleed. He had run the numbers, as he always did, and deemed them acceptable. But numbers couldn't silence the voice in his head, the one that whispered he was no better than Kira, reshaping truth to suit his needs. The door opened, and Watari entered, his footsteps soft but deliberate. His eyes, sharp despite his age, took in the scene: the open safe, the journal, the device in L's hand. Understanding dawned, and with it, a flicker of pain that L wished he hadn't seen. "Ryuzaki," Watari said, his voice steady but heavy. "What are you doing?" L didn't meet his gaze, his fingers hovering over the device's controls. "Protecting us," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "Protecting what we've built. If Kira gets to you, if he breaks you, this..." He gestured to the journal. "This will destroy everything." Watari's jaw tightened, but he didn't move. "You think I'd break?" he asked, a rare edge to his tone. "After all these years, you doubt me?" L's eyes flicked up, dark and unyielding. "I doubt everyone," he said, the words a confession and a curse. "Even you, even myself. Kira is different, Watari. He's not just a killer, he's a god, or thinks he is. If he finds this, he'll use it to tear us apart. I can't let that happen." Watari stepped closer, his presence a quiet force, like a lighthouse in a storm. "And what of trust, Ryuzaki? What of the bond we forged? You would erase a part of me to save your legacy?" L's fingers froze, his throat tightening. He wanted to explain, to justify, but the words felt hollow. "Not my legacy," he said, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "Yours, Nier's, Mello's. The world needs L, not the man behind him. If this secret comes out, it won't just ruin me, it'll ruin them." Watari's silence was deafening, his eyes searching L's face for the boy he had raised, the prodigy he had nurtured. Finally, he nodded, a single, resigned gesture. "Do what you must," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But know this, Ryuzaki. You cannot erase the truth. It will find you, one way or another." L's heart clenched, but he didn't hesitate. He activated the device, the headset humming as he placed it on Watari's head. The older man sat, his posture rigid, his eyes fixed on L with a mix of trust and sorrow. The interface glowed, prompting L to input the target memory. June 12th, 1994. L's decision. He typed the command, his fingers steady despite the tremor in his soul, and pressed execute. Watari's eyes fluttered, a soft gasp escaping him as the device worked, isolating the memory, severing it from his mind. The process took seconds, but to L, it felt like an eternity, each moment a betrayal etched into his own memory. When it was done, Watari blinked, his expression unchanged but somehow lighter, as if a weight had been lifted or stolen. "Is it done?" he asked, his voice calm, unaware of the void L had created. "It's done," L said, removing the headset, his voice hollow. He returned the journal to the safe, the device to its case, and resumed his perch in the chair, as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Watari moved to his station, coordinating with the task force, his efficiency unbroken, his loyalty intact. Yet L felt the distance, a chasm he had carved with his own hands. The secret was safe, buried in the void of Watari's mind. The legacy of L, justice, brilliance, sacrifice, remained untarnished, a beacon for Nier, Mello, and the world. But L knew the cost. He had violated the one person who had never doubted him, who had carried his sins without question. And he knew Watari was right. The truth could not be erased, not forever. It lingered, a shadow in his own mind, a debt he would pay when Kira's game reached its end. The days that followed were a descent into the Kira case's heart. L pushed harder, his strategies sharper, his confrontations with light more brazen. The task force noticed his intensity, mistaking it for determination, unaware of the guilt driving him. Light's eyes, ever watchful, seemed to sense a crack, a weakness L couldn't fully conceal. Misa's interrogations yielded clues, but not enough. Near and Mello, still at Wami's house, were preparing, their futures tied to the legacy L was bleeding to protect. Watari remained at his side, his efficiency unbroken, his trust seemingly intact. But L saw the difference, a subtle distance, a warmth dimmed by the void he had created. He buried himself in work, in sugar cubes and sleepless nights, but the secret haunted him. June 12th, 1994. The life he had taken, the line he had crossed, the boy he had been before the myth of L consumed him. He had erased it from Watari's memory, but not his own, and it was a weight he carried alone. The Kira case spiraled, Light's moves growing bolder, the Death Note's shadow lengthening. L knew his time was short, that Kira's pen might find his name. And in the quiet moments, when the monitors dimmed and the world was still, L wondered if the secret was his true punishment, not for the life he had taken, but for the trust he had betrayed. The legacy of L would endure, but the man behind it was fracturing, piece by piece, and when the end came, he would face it with the truth he could not erase.